Group is responsible for thousands of deaths, including at least 2,000 this year alone. According to estimates from the United Nations, the group's attacks have led to more than 470,000 internally displaced persons and some 57,000 refugees. However, the group reached a ceasefire agreement with the federal government. This week's edition of the program takes a look at the substance in that agreement. Glad to have you join us on the program this week. I'm Gloria Umezuike. The purported ceasefire agreement between the federal government and the Boko Haram sect should be a move that could end 5 years of insurgency and one that has killed thousands and left hundreds of thousands homeless in the country if it works out. But I spoke to the security expert on the chances of the ceasefire, and his comments were rather interesting. I also have a report on the reactions of people from the most affected states on the ceasefire. But up ahead, the Chief of Defense Staff asked the Nigerian troops fighting the insurgents in the northeast to halt the battle and adhere to the ceasefire deal. Take a listen.
But without any prejudice to the outcome of our 3 days interaction,
mais sans considérer ce qu'on avait déjà discuté dans 3 jours.
And the conclusion of this forum,
et en conclusion,
I wish to inform this audience
je vais informer tout le monde
that a ceasefire agreement has been concluded between the federal government of Nigeria and Al-Sunnah Lidawa wal Jihad.
Qu'ils ont déjà signé un cessez-le-feu entre l'armée du Nigeria et je ne sais pas le nom, et le Boko Haram, non? Et le Boko Haram.
I have accordingly directed
et j'ai déjà instruit
the service chiefs to ensure immediate compliance with this development in the field.
We'll begin the conversation this week with Mr. Mike Ejiofor on the widely controversial ceasefire agreement announced by the federal government. You're welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Well, October 17, the federal government announced a ceasefire agreement with the Boko Haram sect and, of course, the release of over 200 Chibok schoolgirls. What really do you think is happening to that ceasefire deal right now?
Well, the ceasefire is on, and I think it's a welcome development that the government has welcomed the initiative taken by the Boko Haram insurgents through the president of Chad, Deby. I think we should not confuse the whole situation. This was not the initiative of the federal government, although the federal government has been open to negotiations with the insurgents. But there were no known leaders who were ready to negotiate with government. So I think it's a welcome development that the initiative is coming from them. And the ceasefire, I think, is working despite some isolated cases of attack. And it is not unexpected because, one, you might have communication gap between the various commanders of the Boko Haram and the field operatives. Secondly, too, it could be as a result of efforts on activities of criminal elements. We should not lose sight of the fact that the Boko Haram elements have different components. You have the political group, the criminal elements, the religious group, which is actually based on ideology. So I don't expect that all of them will be on the same page at the same time. So that could.
Do you know what a ceasefire means?
Exactly.
A ceasefire really means
cessation of hostilities.
Exactly.
Yes.
So if the federal government comes out boldly to announce a ceasefire, it means they have done their homework. They have come to the table with these insurgents and they have discussed, and the insurgents understood the matters on ground. And it means insurgents have probably gone back to their various groups like you described. You mentioned about 3 sects of them, political and religious and so on. And so it means the homework has been done on both sides for them to have come to such an agreement. So how is it that you say that you expected this to happen?
You see, in leadership, if the federal government is dealing with the mainstream leadership of Boko Haram, that is the aspect I'm talking of, that an agreement has been reached. Agreement may not have been reached with other groups or the criminal elements, because you don't expect the government to start dealing or negotiating with the criminal elements. So that's why I said, as long as the government is on course, its sources have been vetted before going to negotiation, I don't think the government will just come out to tell Nigerians that they've reached an agreement when there was no agreement.
That's where I have a problem right now. You know, you say probably they reached an agreement with one part of the group and not the others.
Mainstream.
Okay, the mainstream, as you say.
Yeah.
Now, which is the most important, to reach an agreement with the group that is actually violating and causing violent attacks and blood to spill and the rest of it? Is that not the main group we're talking about here?
No. I think that's why I said you would need to explain the situation. You see, the main group of the Boko Haram under the leadership of Shekau, I think, is the one the government is dealing with. Because I think one of the terms of the agreement, I presume, because I don't have the details of the agreement, was the release of those 219 girls who are being held hostage. So if an agreement was reached in that aspect where government came out to say, yes, the girls will be released. So you are sure you are dealing with the mainstream Boko Haram. And
so, okay, we've just done one phase of it. We're left with the other phase that are still, or the other sects that are still violating and causing so much bloodshed in the communities. Is that what you're trying to say?
No, not exactly. You see, the leadership of the Boko Haram is what the government is dealing with. But if they're able to reach an agreement, don't forget also that the negotiations are ongoing. But if they reach an agreement with government and the criminal elements are operating, possibly to thwart the process, I'm sure the mainstream Boko Haram will join government in fishing out the criminal elements and routing them out.
So who are the mainstream Boko Haram? Who are the other people, you know, still causing this chaos?
Of course, you know the mainstream is led by then Yusuf and Mohammed Yusuf before Shekau assumed leadership.
But this is not what we understood as Nigerians. And Nigerians, of course, did not get all this explanation, saying it's only one faction that will surrender.
No, I'm not suggesting that the government is dealing with one faction.
That's exactly what you're insinuating.
No. What I'm saying, the mainstream leadership of Boko Haram. I'm not talking of fact. You forget. You also seem to forget that you have an Ansaru group, which is the violent arm or a different arm of Boko Haram, which doesn't seem to agree with what Boko Haram is doing.
All Nigerians heard on that day was a ceasefire with Boko Haram.
Yes.
There was no demarcation.
Yeah.
Yes. So how are we getting these explanations after we're experiencing persistent attacks in the area?
Well, I'm not speaking on behalf of government because I wasn't part of the negotiation and I didn't enter into an agreement. But I'm telling you from an analytical viewpoint that these are possibilities.
So really, you know, why I speak this way is because a lot of doubts, controversies, which have obviously, you know, trailed that announcement, many of them come from the people in these affected areas, Adamawa, Borno, and the rest of them. And these people now say, are you sure there was a ceasefire? We're not sure about this. Do you think they really have any need to be doubtful?
Well, yes, I think they have every reason to doubt the authenticity of such an agreement. Because you remember that on about 3 occasions, some leaders, in quote now, of Boko Haram has come out to announce a ceasefire, which eventually did not materialize. And such announcements were made by people who were not actually representing Boko Haram or had interaction with government. But this one, government is specific. I mean, a person of in the person of Chief of Defense Staff coming out to make such a statement, we don't have any reason to doubt such claims.